Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad bin Zulkifli. My matric number is 278075. So I'm going to explain about the analysis of the unemployment in Malaysia from the 1990 from until 2020. So this project has been prepared by Group 4, which is it is Abdul Rahim bin Abdul Razak 277 316 and me, Muhammad Akmal bin Zulkifli 278075. And this project is prepared for Professor Dr. Salahuddin Hassan. For the introduction, so the unemployment is actually a situation that occurs in all countries, even the countries is already achieved the status of developed country. So there are several types of unemployment that occur in an economy, such as the structural unemployment, seasonal unemployment, frictional unemployment, cyclical unemployment, technological unemployment, and insignificant unemployment. Next, there's a problem statement, which is the problem statement is Malaysia is suffering from high unemployment due to the global economic shock. We want to find out how Malaysia can overcome this unemployment problem through inflation rate. Next, we want to investigate the correlation between economic growth and the number of industries on unemployment in Malaysia. For the research question, there are 4 questions for our research. The first is, what is the relationship between unemployment and inflation rate in Malaysia? Second, what is the relationship between unemployment and economic growth? Third, what is the relationship between unemployment and the number of Malaysian industries? And the last one is, what is the impact of unemployment on the Malaysian economy? Okay. For the objective of study, there's a 4 objective of the study, which is the first one is to identify the relationship of unemployment with inflation rate. Second, to analyze the association of unemployment with economic growth. Third, to study the relationship between unemployment and the number industries in Malaysia. And the last one, to identify the impact of unemployment on the Malaysian economy. Then, our scope of our study is to understand the unemployment situation in Malaysia, that we have collected information on Malaysia unemployment from the year 1991 until 2020, spanning 3 decades. These studies has resulted throughout the semester to collect the data, information, and issues related to this topic. All these studies focus on the economic situation in Malaysia. For the literature review, based on the 4 independent variables that we are studies, and the first one is the unemployment. So the first literature review for unemployment is the Keynes in 1970 that explained that unemployment occurs when there is a lack of spending in an economy, and this situation will lead to an economic recession in the long run if there is no government intervention in resolving the issue of unemployment. Next, for the unemployment, the Jeffrey Parker had studies in 2010. Throughout his writing state that unemployment is a retrenchment of workers from a labor market, and these layoffs resulted in a reduction in income and then reduced daily expenses. For the inflation rate, the study in 2010 from Saguta Kasif has conducted a study on the relationship between foreign exchange rate and inflation from 1993 until 2010. By using ordinary least square, which is OLS, model to determine the relationship between foreign exchange rate and inflation in the long run. For the second literature review is the Kelly and Birol Akul in 2011, which is they conduct a study to test the relationship between consumer price index (CPI) and fuel oil price index in Turkey using monthly data from 2005 until 2010. Third, for the economic growth, the study is 1984 from Gordon. This economist said that GDP has unemployment rate are influenced by productivity and labor force participation rate. The higher the labor participation rate and the more productivity can be increased and the country's GDP. Second, the Laws studies in 1970 explained that every increase in GDP of 4% should affect the decrease in the value of 1% unemployment, so that the economy of the country it is the best. This relationship creates a more stable economy as well as avoid wastage of the labor force. And lastly, for the number of industry, the studies in 1991 from Felix find the same of the likelihood of shifting to a job in a different industry from the one in which one was employed and before unemployment. Second is the influence of the benefit when significant is found to be negative by Danish, the study by Jason and Wester Nielsen in 1990, that estimating probabilities for recall and new jobs separately for men and women in 4 age group. The results are particularly strong in the case of the 91 recall probabilities. So, for the methodology, there are a few methodology that we have used to complete the project, and the first one is theoretical framework. So our project has a dependent variable and the independent variable. So the dependent variable is unemployment and the independent variable is the inflation, gross domestic, and the number of industry. We also use the econometrics model to run this project, which is the econometric model used in the study is a linear regression model. The selection of this model is because it is easier for us to study the relationship between scale responses between one or more variables. Next, we also use justification of variable, which is we use the data and we class it by the measure of the variable, unit, and source for each dependent and independent variable. For example, our dependent variable is unemployment, and the measure of the variable is unemployment rate, and the unit is percentage, and the source is from Department of Statistics Malaysia. And for our independent variable, for example, is inflation rate, and the measure of the variable is the consumer price index, which is CPI, and the unit is a percentage, and the source is also from the Department of Statistics Malaysia. The fourth method that we use is data and sampling, which is our research is used the set of data for the 3 decades, which is from 1990 until 2020 in each variables. All these data are official data obtained from the Department of Statistics Malaysia, which is DOSM. So our each dependent and independent variables, we use the set of data that for 3 decades from 1990 until 2020. The last one is method of analysis. So by using a specific analytical method, is a technique to identify the variable used in the study. It will be the framework that determines the response to the research study. We have used a quantitative method in this research study, which is quantitative method are more use of a number, numerical data, and statistics. And the statistics used involve meaning, median, mode, percentage, standard, so variance, and so on. That's all from me.
Okay, my name is Abdul Rahim Razak, 277316, and now I'm gonna present about our analysis and discussion for this project paper. Okay, the first one is descriptive statistic. From the table, you all can see all variables show the positive value on the mean and the median value. The next is the highest maximum value is the number of industry rate that is equal to 19.21000, and the lowest minimum value is the inflation rate equal to negative 0.59000. And next one is the near has the largest fluctuation and show there is a greater influence to the unemployment rate, and the bias for this study is significant but normal because only the inflation rate show a positive value that is equal to 1.629509. So to determine for the kurtosis heavily tailed or lightly tailed, we can assume that the data set is a leptokurtic because all kurtosis value are greater than 3. The IR is 7.543389. The GDP is 5.639996, and the near is 3.357221. From the table above, for correlation analysis, we can assume the correlation between UR and all independent variables shows a negative value. So the negative value indicates that the relationship between them is very weak. The third one is a multi-regression analysis. From the formula, we must take the coefficient data from the table beside and take it into the formula. So the formula will be UR equal to 3.5316 minus 0.0116 IR minus 0.039389 GDP plus 0.010 NIR. So we can assume from the formula the interpretation sum of beta O. If all the independent variables are 0, the predicted UR is 3.53. The second one for beta 1, on average, if IR increase by 1%, then the UR will decrease by 0.01 unit. It shows a negative relationship between inflation and the unemployment. For beta 2, on average, if GDP increase 1%, then the UR will decrease by 0.03 unit. It shows a negative relationship between GDP and unemployment. For beta 3, on average, if the NIR increase by 1%, then the UR will increase by 0.01%. It shows a positive relationship between the number of industry and the unemployment. Next is the coefficient of determination. analysis. From the table, we must find two values, that is total sum square equal to 4.71487 and total of SD equal to 0.4215. Based on the total, to find the R square, we must get the total into the formula, as you can see the formula here. So when we calculate, it will get 0.0853, same as the answer in the table above. So from the calculation, it proved to us that 8.53% of the variation can be confirmed by the independent variable. It also proved that the influence of the independent variable is relatively weak in influencing the UR. Next one is for the heteroscedasticity analysis with the Bush-Pagan method. So from this method, the value of chi square static is equal to 16.670 and the F value is equal to 10.838. So it shows it is less than the critical value. So the correspondent of P value is equal to 0.0008 and 0.0001, which is greater than 0.05. So in conclusion, we fail to reject the null hypothesis HO of homoscedasticity at the 5% of significant level. So the error term will be homoscedastic for the model. Last but not least, for multicollinearity analysis, we must use tolerance toll and variance inflation factor VIF. If the VIF equal to 1, there is no multicollinearity problem. But if all values are greater than 1, it shows there is multicollinearity problem. As the table shows, we can see all independent variables are greater than 1, which means all variables have a multicollinearity problem. We must refer to the central VIF. So then the VIF of all independent variable doesn't exceed 10, so the variable has slowly collinear problem. Lastly, for conclusion, we can conclude that an increase in inflation rate will lower the unemployment rate. The impact is the supply in labor will increase due to the rising of price of goods. Second is, if the GDP rate increase, it will decline the unemployment rate. The impact will be boost in the economy and create more employment opportunity to the workers. The third one is an increase in number of industry rate will rise the unemployment rate in the small line. The impact will be there is a changes in job from the workers who want to get a better income in the economy. So all independent variable give an influence to the unemployment rate, but it has to be controlled to ensure a better economy in the long run. That's all for me. Thank you.